So next idea, inshallah. Bismillah. So now here's another thing. Inshallah, this won't be new. This won't be a shock. This is easy. If a single word was scribed in 2 ways in the Abu Bakr Mushaf. So now we're leaving behind Malik and Malik because it was scribed in only 1 way. That gave the ability to utter it and pronounce it 2 ways. Now we're talking about a new idea where it was impossible to scribe these 2 utterances in 1 way. It had to be scribed in 2 different ways because it had an extra letter or a missing letter. There was no way for it to be only scribed 1 way. Otherwise, the utterance, the recitation would be lost. So some words were scribed 2 ways in the original Abu Bakr copy. Okay, so 1 or more copies were written in 1 form and the others in a different way. Here's an example. Sari'u was scribed in 3 copies, and wasari'u, this is the same ayah and the same surah, was scribed with a waw in the other 3 ways. And here's a hint that I'm hinting to you how many Masahif Uthmaniyya were scribed or how many were compiled. 3 plus 3. Okay, so this is a very popular example of how it, sometimes you had to have 2 different scriptures to represent the difference in reciting. Right. So Brother Muhammad says, is it right to say that the spellings are ijtihad of Sahaba? The spellings is the spelling system that they used to use anyway. They just continued using it. Wallahu a'lam. Okay. Now another example of differences that are found between the different masahif. Some are not really related to ahruf, not necessarily, not by the way Ibn Jazari mentioned, but it is kind of where you can say an added letter and a subtracted letter, yes. So some of these examples is where a word like Allah in the Arabic language, letters that are usually written in this form of Allah, an alif, representing a hamza, and then a lam, and then another alif. That's the most common way, even today, to write Allah. But there are 10 or 11 locations in the Quran where the word Allah was written, scribed with la. 10 of them, all the Masahif Uthmaniyya, are scribed with la. And then we have an 11th that's scribed in some Masahif without a noon, so Allah, like the original more common way, and some Masahif with a noon. So in that exact utterance, it's actually in Surah Al-Anbiya, where with a nooni, not ذهب مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. That ayah in Surah Al-Anbiya is actually the word Allah was scribed in some masahif without the noon, and in some masahif with the noon. That means with 100% certainty it was scribed both ways in the Mushaf al-Siddiqi. And with 100% certainty it was scribed both ways in front of the Prophet ﷺ and approved. Approved by, you understand, the approval came with no wahi coming down and saying, no, there's a mistake. So approval is that of basically no corrections were made. So this is another difference that was now spread or distributed in different copies. There are a lot of examples. So I'm just going to go on just maybe probably with this one. This continues to the next slide and then we'll end here, inshallah. Some ahruf, so some variations, were in uncommon versus common pronunciations. We mentioned that slightly before in the word basta and basta, where the original pronunciation of the word is with a sin. Sirat is the same thing. The original, the root of the word is sa-ra-ta, sin-ra-ta. So when we talk about the object as sirat, which is like the bridge, the original pronunciation and spelling would be with a sin, sirata. Now with time and with different accents and dialects, some tribes started pronouncing it sirat with a sad, and some of them started writing it that way. And there's actually a third variation of pronouncing the word, which is zirat, z, a heavy sad zay combo, which doesn't have a letter representation. Okay, so these are the different utterances, and the Quran was revealed in actually all three pronunciations. The word as-sirat is pronounced with a sin. It can also be pronounced with a sad, sirat. It can also be pronounced with the sad zay combination, zirat. Okay. How was this word scribed in front of the Prophet ﷺ? How was it then copied to the Mushaf al-Siddiqi? How was it then copied to the Mushaf Uthmani? We have it in the next slide. It was written with a sad. Everywhere in the Quran, this word was written with a sad. Okay, how can that allow for the sin pronunciation? Won't that cause the sin variation, which is revealed by Jibreel alayhi salam to the Prophet ﷺ? How can that be uttered if it's written as a sad? Ibn Jazari explains this by saying, because sin is the original, it's the root, and sad came later. And it's the less known pronunciation of the word when it comes to the Arabic tribal accents. So scribing the Quran with the sad gives validation, validates the sad pronunciation, whereas the sin pronunciation does not need validation. It's the original and it's the most common. So that way, both variations have equal standing in reciting the Quran, because both are recited from the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ, sin, sad, and za. And the sin doesn't need to be written, represented, because it's well known by the Arabs that the sin is original, whereas the sad needed to be written, so it has that extra validation because it's less widely spread, and it's not the original root of the word. So that's kind of interpreting what I wrote for you. This way, the common pronunciation in the other recitals would be included by default, which is the sin, and the sad, which is the less common, would be actually written, so it's not lost or not disregarded later by later generations who see, oh, it's written by a sin, but you're pronouncing it as sad, and it's originally a sin, you must be wrong. So that's why the interpretation of the scholars, why has this word been written with a sad everywhere in the Quran? This is the ijtihad of the scholars to explain what they found. But it was scribed with a sad, as-sirat or sirat. Anywhere in the Quran, it is always scribed with a sad. The scholars are just explaining, wallahu alam, the reasoning behind that. I think this is a good place to stop. Very good, a good place to stop, inshallah, with these examples of the different variations. A lot to absorb. Please study well, and you'll have homework and a test, okay? The test, let me talk to you about the test. Today's Thursday night. So I'll probably have your homework ready tomorrow around noon, which seems to be the pattern, and also probably your test around the same time. The test will be timed, okay? There is an app or a gadget or a widget, or I don't know what it's called, that I'm subscribed to that works with Google Forms. And actually, it's like a time bomb. I'm so sorry. But it literally, it's like when the time is out, it will close the form. And if you haven't submitted, your answers will be completely lost. Like, I will not receive your answers. So please, 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 please submit your test well before the end of the time limit of the exam. I don't know how long the exam is. What I'm going to do is, inshallah, what I've done previously, the way, you know, if you're a teacher, you know that to do a time test, you go through a different measurements and basically multiply the time you take by 3 or 4, depending on the length of questions and if it needs typing or whatnot. The exam will be multiple choice. It will be just like the homework, but it will not be exactly the homework. Some of the questions will be exactly the homework questions. Some will be variations of the homework questions. But I'm not going to ask you something that's not at all mentioned in the homework, okay? So if you study the homework questions and understand it very well and review the slides, you should be, inshallah, comfortably ready for the test. And the time, inshallah, it will not make anyone feel rushed. But at the same time, it'll not give you leeway to actually read the slides and then answer the questions. No, it's a time test. Make sure you submit it at least 5 minutes before the timer, because you never know if your internet doesn't work or just clicking the buttons, or sometimes you'll have that, you know, the pop-up screen that says, you know, how many stoplights, and you're flustered and you start clicking on the non-stoplights and it doesn't let you submit because of something like that. So I don't want you to face any kind of technical difficulties. When do you need to submit, or the final time to submit your exam? The same as the homework, before class on Monday. So you'll have about 3 days, inshallah. You can choose the time of day and night, whenever, to do both homework and then the exam. Definitely, I'd say do your homework first. Make sure you understand the results of your homework and understand why some questions are right or some questions are wrong, because they will be included in your exam to some degree, inshallah. Okay, so let me see if there are any questions here. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Rayyan. You have a beautiful heart and beautiful, yani, the course seems beautiful to you because you're a beautiful person. May Allah bless you. Brother Muhammad is saying, any slides provide? Yes, the slides we provide, I upload it every night after class. It's in the Google Drive. I also post a direct link to the slides from the Google Classroom. I also upload every night the videos into the Drive, and I provide a direct link from the Google Classroom to the Drive. So if you've registered with a certificate, all you need to do is go to the Google Classroom and accept, of course, the Google Drive, and everything is in Google Classroom. If you're without a certificate, you've been invited to the Drive, everything is in the Drive, the slides plus the recordings, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. If you have difficulty accessing your Drive, Brother Wadia is our technical helper, everything helper, and I encourage everyone to help each other, inshallah ta'ala. I took notes of what I promised to follow up with you, so I want to follow up with the story of Khuzaymah, see if there's a good English translation of that. Follow up with you with, if anyone's interested in joining the groups of writing the Quran by hand, to see how many numbers I should ask Nibras if they can provide it. Also, the stages of writing the Quran and in the current modern printing press in Medina al-Munawwara for the Mushaf. There's a nice video that shows that, and also the story of Ayyubi. So inshallah, I'll be doing that tonight, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Thank you so much. May Allah bless you. Jazakumullahu khairan. Don't forget myself and everyone else in this class from your dua. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Okay, brother, inshallah, I will. Thank you so much for reminding me, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.